So you're on the app that's been shared with you. How do I actually use this to interact with the data and maybe draw my own conclusions? So what we want to do from here is, this is the dashboard, and if I click on any visualization on the dashboard, it takes me through to the pages in the underlying report. And on the left I see my various pages here, sales margins, matrices, etc. that I've created. But let's start on the front page here. First off, let's look at highlighting and interacting with the visualizations directly. So if I click on a particular sales rep here, so I'm going to click on Petula. Now you'll notice on the way through there we saw the tooltip, but when I click on Petula, it's actually highlighting other visuals on the page. So graphs tend to get highlighting. So what this is giving me here is highlighted in a more bold version of whatever the color was, is data for Petula. And the same here on my tree map. So this is a tree map, very handy for showing particularly data within data. So I've got models within makes here. Tree maps are very good for that. And we'll notice again on the tooltips, we're seeing some additional information that the report designer has added in over the basic. This is, of course, our basic tooltip information. Now, if I want to clear the effect of that particular interaction, I just click back on Petula and I get all of my data back. So just to recap, if I click on any object here, so I'm clicking on Peter's sales, I'm now seeing highlighted in a stronger color. Everybody else goes a bit dim. On the two graphs on the left, I'm seeing that highlighting take effect. But if we look closely at the cards here, let me switch Peter off for a moment. The two cards are showing our overall sales, 2.24 million, 730 units. But if I click, for example, on Paul, we see Paul's contribution is 104 units and 318,000 and a bit, nearly 319. So with the cards, and you'll see this with line graphs as well, it can't highlight, so it will just filter. So now there's a little confirmation we have to see this. I'm just going to go up and I'll choose Mary this time. So when I'm looking at Mary's figures here, if I go to this card, you'll notice this is a relatively new feature. There's a little funnel symbol here on the card, and if I sneak up on it, and this little filter information tool tells me what filters are being applied to that card. So you might not have noticed that you've clicked on something that's triggering some highlighting and filtering, but the little funnel, if we hover over it, will actually tell us that it's being filtered where the sales are for our sales rep Mary. So that's giving us some useful information there. Similarly, up the top, if I hover over the little funnel there, little filter symbol basically, it's telling me what filters are in force. So that's a really useful tool if you've got a lot going on the page. Now, I'm going to leave that in place there with Mary, but if I now come over here on the left, I have slices. Now, in this case, I've implemented the slices so that we don't need the control key to pick more than one. So I might be looking at, I want to look at sales for places that start with T. Maybe we do better in places that start with T. So I've selected Thornside and Toowoomba. Now if I go to my card, I can now see the filters that are in place or that are affecting this particular card are town is Thornside or Toowoomba, sales rep is Mary. Similarly, if I come over here to my tree map, I can see that I'm looking at, again, sales rep is Mary, town is Thornside or Toowoomba. So that's a useful tool just to make sure you're looking at what you think you're looking at. Now, if I come back to my slicer, I have this little eraser. It's like a little rectangle on its side. If I click the little eraser, then that will clear any checked checkboxes for me. Now, so what we've seen so far is highlighting and filtering through clicking on an actual visual itself. We've also seen our slices where we chose particular towns. And what we now have is a price slicer, which, because it's a continuum, and dates will give you the same thing, because it's a continuum, we can grab the end of the slicer and drag it in and look at basically a particular price range. So maybe we were thinking, look, how do we do with our higher price cars? And so I can focus the slicer on the top end of the scale, as it were, and I'm now seeing things in the $3,013 to $3,881 price range. I'll clear that slicer again. I've got my little rectangle on its side, little eraser there. I'm going to click back up on Mary, so I've got no slicers in effect, no filters in effect now. Now the next thing we've got, so we've seen interacting with the visualizations, we've seen using the slicers. We also have a filter pane over here on the right. Now, depending on settings that the person who generated your report has chosen, you may or may not see these particular filter tools, because some can be hidden, some can be made visible but not adjustable. So it really depends on the nature of the report. But this is where you might put extra filters over here. And I've got filters that are available just so I could go back onto a particular visualization. There we go. So I've just clicked on the edge of my sale price by short month report on the left. So I'm seeing filters that are available on that particular visualization. So I could say, look here, I just want to choose the first 3 months. Just tell me about the first 3 months. That will start to tell you some stories about what's happening in your business. Again, I have an eraser to clear that, but let me just reselect those. Notice I can collapse this panel, and out of sight, out of mind, okay? You might forget that you chose those. If I come over my little filter information tool, it's actually telling me that I have a filter in place for January, February and March. So if you're getting something you're not expecting to see in a visualization, I would be recommending you check that, because you may have chosen something in the filter panel earlier and maybe forgotten to clear it. So I can see that really being worth its weight, that little tool. Now I'm going to expand the filters pane again. And again, I can clear particular filters that I've got in place. I've also got some filters available here that will filter across every page in the report. So the filters we're just working with just apply on the visual or on the page that you happen to be on. These are effectively report level filters that we see here at the bottom. And if I expand those, again, just clicking on the little chevron, and I can choose a particular make. So I'm interested in the Houston make and the DeFancy make. And I'm now seeing a breakdown of the sales for the Houston and the DeFancy, and we can see the particular situation there for those. And again, I can clear the filters to get all of my data back. And again, I have as a report level filter, because I might not have a slicer for town on every page, but by making it as a report level filter, your author of the report that you're being shared has very thoughtfully provided that, which means we could be on any page and use that particular filter. In fact, let's try that out. If I go to the margins page, I can now select Thornside and Toowoomba, and you'll notice it's dynamically filtering all the matrices and line graphs on that particular page. So I'm going to close the filter pane down now. Now at this point, for interacting, we've seen slices, we've seen the filter pane, we've seen just the ability to click on things in a graph, or indeed here in a matrix. If I click on the Houston brand, I see over here my amount over retail that we're actually charging each month. May was not a good month. And my total sales by each month. So maybe May, June were not good months for some reason. There might have been an election or some other thing happening then. If I click on Houston again, I get the overall picture, and I see that there were issues overall in June, but not so much in our overall sales. So maybe the Houston brand was having a run out, and we've had other things happening with our different brands. This next bit's not actually filtering, but it falls very strongly into our interactions we can use. I have up here a little drill down arrow. Now, again, this is something that the person who generates your report has to do a little bit to set this up, but it's not hard to do. If I click on the little drill down arrow, I can then come over here and go, right, what's the story for Studi Cookers? And if I click there, this is now giving me my two major makes for the Studi brand. So what I can do from here is if I want to go back up to the higher level, I have an up button to go back up. And so again, I can drill down onto a different make, see the brands for that other make and what's happening there. And then I can expand back, or navigate rather than expand, navigate back up to the higher level. If I want to see the whole lot, I do have this double arrow which takes me down to the next level in the hierarchy. I have sort of mixed feelings about this because you'll notice we've lost the brand. So let me just go back up a level. The third one along here looks like a pitchfork. This expands down one level in the hierarchy, and this one's a bit of a favourite of mine because it keeps the top level classification. Brand in this case is here, or make. So that gives you a nice little report that just allows you to expand and collapse to, if you're giving presentations, I think this is very useful for giving presentations. So that's having a look at drill down. And just to recap, to activate drill down, you just click this little down arrow, it will light up, and then you can either just drill down on an individual make, or we can expand the whole hierarchy and get a nice little report out of that. You'll notice if I hover over my filter symbol, at the moment I have no filters in force, but I can come over here, choose a region, and I'm now seeing the story for Capalaba, gateway to the Redlands, for those of you who don't know Capalaba. We can see what's happening in that particular dealership or region. And again, I'll clear that filter. Collapsing the filter pane. In the next module, we'll have a look at saving state, so that if you want to keep track of a particular set of factors you had selected, maybe to go and ask somebody about it, we can make a personal bookmark, and we'll also have a look at bookmarks that might have been built in by your report developer. And we've still got exporting the data and some other good fun stuff to come. So thank you for your attention.
For next level learning,